And we are live for another exciting episode of First Strike. But before we start the show, I'm going to plug our sponsor, face2facegames.com, the #1 place to get your Magic the Gathering singles. This week's weekly special, is to help celebrate St. Patrick's Day. This upcoming Sunday is a sale on a bunch of select green cards, and a lot of all versions of Goyfs are on discount. So if you've been waiting to get a Goyf, this is the best time. Go to face2facegames.com right now. Lots to talk about with the boys here. Got Andy and Elliot in the chat. So let's just jump straight to it. We're going to have Medina on later just to get his thoughts on the upcoming sets, War of the Spark, and maybe some Modern Horizons. Going to try to minimize the finance, but also enough to get the people who are into this type of talk, some of our First Strike Nation people that enjoy that stuff, for them to chew on. But let's jump to the Open Plus. This upcoming weekend, there's actually, I got to plug this, the St. John's Open this Saturday. So if you're from Newfoundland, definitely go check it out. But this past weekend, we had 2 Open Pluses, which is our biggest tournaments of the tournament series, Face2Face Games Tournament Series. One in Red Deer, one was in Toronto. And I'm gonna pick Andy's brain here, because Andy has been touting the Izzet Phoenix deck, and I even saw Shaheen Surani, friend of the show, on his latest article on SCG basically say that it's the best deck, and it ended up taking down the Toronto Open Plus by a man named John Robbins, and he's part of a team that is making some waves. I believe it's called the Chilled Guild.
The Chilled Guild, yeah.
in Hamilton. You're familiar with the Chilled Guild?
Everyone knows the Chilled Guild.
I don't know, Andy. It reminds me of when I was trying to give everyone a Mana Deprived shirt, and it was very noticeable. They are probably the closest thing since, in terms of just me visually noticing on a constant basis, not just at events but on social media. They're definitely doing that push, and he took it down with Izzet Phoenix, your deck of choice. There was another Izzet Phoenix in the top 8. And I'm looking at his list, and I wonder if you, your version, and what you think about his particular version. Like, he plays 2 copies of Snapcaster Mage in the main, and he says in my interview with him on the KYT show, my other podcast, he plays 2 Life Goes On instead of the Dragon Claw, right? For the burn matchup. So give me your take. Are you playing the Snapcaster's main?
No, I'm still playing a little Terramander, but I think the Snapcasters are defensible. I think they're pretty good. They're both sort of weak to the graveyard, but Snapcaster is better in the late game, and Terramander sometimes it's not even better. Terramander does a really good job against a lot of creature decks at just being a big guy, and Snapcaster, the utility you get on a 2/1 is not great, but sometimes the 2/1 matters a lot, especially when you're trying to burn people out. The sideboard of Life Goes On, the shock plus the Life Goes On, ends up being sort of a relative wash with how mopey Dragon's Claw is. They're both sort of mopey at what they do, but Life Goes On is a higher upside. You could draw it later and it'd be better. Dragon's Claw kind of requires you to draw it on turn 2, so there is the upside to Life Goes On there. And also Snapcaster is also pretty good against burn, so I think his deck is certainly going to be better against burn, which is sort of what the Life Goes On is for. So as far as that goes, the Life Goes On package wins. But I still think the flex slot is sort of up in the air. They're all sort of in the middling power level. None of them are great. Some of them are okay. Some are better late in different matchups. So I think just depending on what you expect to see is what you should decide for which one to play. They're both good.
There's just a ton of one-ofs in the main. I guess with Snapcaster, it's extra copies. I'm really wondering, how do you even decide to tune it with all these one-ofs that are clearly, I guess, flex slots? How many is it? Charms? This guy has 1 copy of Beacon Bolt in the board, 1 copy of Dispel, 1 Ceremonious Rejection. It's whoa! How do you even put the perfect 75 together if you're going to Magic Fest Calgary?
The thing is, when you get to look at a third of your deck every game, on average, you're going to see a lot of these one-ofs a lot more. And especially when they're super tempo plays or super powerful in matchups, and Ceremonious Rejection's a sick tempo play. Beacon Bolt is insane when it's good. So like those are the kind of cards that you want to make sure you can try to find, so at least you have more of a chance to find it. And that's what makes the Izzet Phoenix deck so good, is that even if it doesn't have a great matchup, it has just like almost no fail rate. It does what it does all the time. And being able to see so many cards makes your sideboard matter a lot more. Sideboards matter a lot in Modern. Makes this deck just absolutely a killer in Modern. And I think the one-ofs, it's just always been kind of that way because you see so much of your deck.
I think when I picked your brain about the deck at Magic Fest Toronto, you talked about how the burn deck might be closer than people think. So it is like having this Snapcaster version and Life Goes On that are somewhat upgrades for that matchup, I guess does matter.
I'm not even sure it does, I'll be frank.
Okay.
Like, so here's the thing, is like a lot of people who are very smart people and play a lot of burn on Twitter, like Patrick Sullivan is the prime example of someone who I would consider an expert on the archetype, says that he doesn't even really like his matchup. And it comes down to like, yes, he has a good matchup against Phoenix, but his deck has a fail rate. Phoenix does not have a fail rate. So once again, it's hard to really like say how good a matchup is when one deck will fail 10%, 15% of the time, or virtually fail, like not have a good enough draw even against the deck, and the other deck fails like 5% of the time, 2.5% of the time. So it's sort of how Phoenix turns its bad matchups into good, is that it just does the same thing every time, and it does it almost every time. And with a deck like Burn, sometimes it can draw cards in the wrong order and lose. And Phoenix has really fast draws that can take advantage of Burn. Thing in the Ice is a hell of a card. Sometimes it can just put 2 Arclight Phoenixes into play on turn 2, and that's a hell of a problem for Burn. So it's like my matchup against Burn, I've beaten it way more than I've lost to it, and a lot of the time it had nothing to do with Dragon's Claw at all. It's just I won the games. So maybe it doesn't even matter. Some people don't even play either Life Goes On or Dragon's Claw.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if that's a step you take. That sounds reasonable to me.
It sounds reasonable, but you'd have to like mitigate it with like playing more Spell Pierce or something. But then at that point, you don't want the 3rd and 4th Spell Pierce against other decks, so you might as well just dedicate some real cards against Burn.
Right. There were John mentioned that there was Amulet Titan in the room. Not surprising, being at Toronto and Edgar's influence. None of it made top 8. 3 copies of Grixis Death Shadow ended up making top 8. So doesn't really change my view of the format from Magic Fest Toronto when Grixis Death Shadow took it down. Seems like that deck is also a great choice moving forward for those of you who have been playing Death Shadow forever. Going to the Red Deer Open Plus, the other deck that made the finals of Magic Fest Toronto was the War Prison deck, and that took down the Red Deer Open Plus by Truman Yee. We see a Titan Shift deck, Grixis Death Shadow, Hardened Scales, Boros Burn, Turbo Vizier combo, Amulet Titan again, Sultai Reclamation by Robert Smith. So a bunch of different decks made that top 8. It is interesting to see War Prison picking some steam now that people are even writing a lot of articles on it. On SCG, we have R Relax, the essential War Prison primer. Dominic Harvey, the leading SCG point getter right now, wrote War Prison is Modern's newest torture device. So lots of hype backed behind the War Prison deck, and I think we talked about how it likes its Izzet Phoenix matchup, right, Andy?
Yeah, it smushes Phoenix, and I assume that's why it's so popular. It's because it has a good matchup against the best deck.
And some, it's not. So it's like Titan Shift and okay, so they're it's not the same deck. It's Titan Shift and an Amulet Titan deck. That still makes me think that Amulet Titan is among up there, as Edgar would say. It's still being played everywhere, especially in Toronto, and seeing some results here at the Red Deer Open Plus. Elliot, do you have any thoughts on the format overall?
Yeah, I specifically touching on Amulet, like you just said, I think that it's one of those decks that you can't really track its success from looking at its top 32s and top 16s and stuff like that, or even how many copies it puts in the top 8, just because at any given tournament, there's going to be so few people playing it. It's really a deck that rewards lots of reps, lots of experience with the deck, and tuning your sideboard and stuff because you have access to Summoner's Pact and Tilleria West to tutor for cards. So recently we've seen people playing white, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of your matches are going to be decided by things like how many engineered explosives, whether you're playing Thragtusk, Baloth, those kind of cards. So when you have a tournament like the Modern Open, that was the Modern Open Plus that was in Toronto, and you have 3 copies of Death Shadow in the top 8, 2 copies of Phoenix, I think it's very likely that something like 10% of the people in the tournament were playing Izzet Phoenix, and another 5, 8, 10% were playing Death Shadow. So the fact that they put a lot of copies in the top 8 is, I don't want to say expected. At the top 8 of any given tournament is a little bit random. It comes down to 1 match or 2 matches going a different way. All of a sudden, we have a different picture of the top 8. But I wouldn't expect more than 4 or 5 copies of Amulet in an event that size. So the fact that none in the top 8, to me, doesn't mean that the deck's doing poorly. That was something I think Edgar got into that a little bit on Twitter. People were talking about it, how it didn't top 32 at the last Modern Grand Prix. And when there's only a handful of people that are very skilled at the deck, you can't win every event. So definitely if Edgar's there, probably a favorite to top 8 an event, but I don't know that you put it in the hands of a random person. It's not the same as giving a random person Izzet Phoenix. With respect to the War Prison deck, I think that's definitely up there as a contender for best deck in Modern. It's another one of the decks that I think is a little bit underrepresented, not just in terms of how difficult it is to play, but Prison strategies, I think there's always a lot of late adopters to them. It had also won the Modern Challenge this weekend. Susurrus MTG is the one who actually created the deck. He played it in the Modern Challenge, got first, was actually playing, I think the card's Darksteel Forge, it's like a 9-mana artifact that artifacts you control get indestructible. So he's even discovered some sort of technology for what we alluded to a couple episodes ago about Izzet Phoenix adopting Shatterstorm. So anytime you have a were or Court of Calling, Summoner's Pact, like I said, those type of effects, you just have a whole gamut of possibilities of cards you can play that do all sorts of different effects to help the matchups that you need them in. So that one's obviously very clunky, very expensive, but good find by him, and obviously it served him well to come first in the tournament. And at the end of the day, Modern's Modern, so really any deck can win a tournament. Really any deck can especially come in the top 8 or top 16 of a tournament. So probably if you're looking to be playing in the Modern Grand Prix this weekend or in the future, again, stick with what you know. But if you're brand new to the format, I would suggest Amulet, Izzet, or the Prison deck, or Death Shadow.
Right. Any final thoughts on the format, Andy? Because you love Phoenix.
Don't ban looting, please. No, I think Izzet Phoenix is the best deck, and maybe it will correct itself. Because whenever I think of a deck being the best deck, I try to think back to when people thought Death Shadow would get banned. I remember Elliot telling me that he's positive that Street Wraith is going to get banned. And at the time, not that far-fetched of a thing. It was extremely dominant. So I try to think back to that and hope that the format can self-correct itself to being a different stink pile. But one where fair decks can play.
All right. Let's move on to the I guess the consensus math stats guru of the MTG community, or at least someone that's willing to write the scripts and crunch the numbers in the lab. Frank Hardiston posted the London Mulligan rule mathematically benefits strategies that rely on specific cards, and very in-depth and long article. Obviously not going to go through most of it. Some of its conclusions are that he did an experiment of how often will you guarantee a 2-card combo, and you were so I'm just going to read quickly some different parts. So under the London rule, you'll be able to sculpt a perfect opening hand, i.e. a hand with one of each combo piece and at least 2 lands substantially more often, and you end up with larger hands on average. If you mulligan aggressively, you're 70.46% to end up with such a perfect opening hand. Given that this number does not even consider future draw steps or card selection spells, combo decks can be expected to carry out their plans quite reliably in London. And then he talks about, like, tackles the question of, well, can you cut a land from your deck? And basically, you're supposed to play more lands, even though that's counterintuitive, because I imagine because of the new mulligan rule, you're just going to have more keepable hands, and then you can just ship the extra lands to the bottom if you do mulligan. And another stat that he says, like, given this deck and mulligan strategy, the number of non-games was roughly 1 in 19 under the Vancouver mulligan, but will be roughly 1 in 190 under the London mulligan rule. That's a major improvement. So the amount of non-games is going to substantially decrease. So there's not potentially a game 5. It's going to be very unlikely for a game 5 in the finals of a Mythic Championship to just come to like a multi-5, multi-4 die with not much action. And but he is fearful. Several years ago, his conclusion was several years ago, the London mulligan rule was dismissed because combo decks got a huge advantage and encouraged big changes in deck building. My article unsurprisingly confirms this, but its main contribution is to show concrete numbers and examples. I use simplified models that I can improve over the next few weeks, but I believe these first steps are already insightful. My takeaway is that for decks that rely on specific cards, the differences between the Vancouver rule and the London mulligan rule seem worryingly large. Your thoughts on all of this stuff, Elliot?
So I'll first say that I saw the link to the article on Reddit, and the title is "It Benefits Strategies That Rely on Specific Cards," and I thought, what kind of idiot would write an article like this that's so painfully obvious? And I clicked the link, and it's Frank Carson. And I thought, I'm in for a good one. So obviously, there's a lot of great insight in the article. I would definitely recommend reading it if you're a math guy, if you're a numbers guy, or if you don't want to read it, just at least scroll through and check the percentages, because it's definitely helpful. He goes over the numbers for things like ley lines and stuff, which definitely something to have in your back pocket if you're going to be playing ley lines. But my highlights from when I read the article was I was shocked. He admitted his model wasn't perfect for the Tron deck, but I was shocked by how low the percentage of having a turn 3 Karn was in his. It was Karn or Wormcoil Engine he had on turn 3 with the new mulligan rule. It works out to something like 40%, which, again, not perfect, so it should be higher in practice. But that's sort of shockingly low with the new mulligan rule. Tron was a front runner for me in terms of decks I thought improved a lot, so that one was shocking. I definitely think that the mulligan rule is going to be really interesting. I think we're going to see a lot of decks that previously were sort of on the precipice of modern, like tier 2, tier 2.5, suddenly get a lot better because of it. I remember a Reed Duke article, I think it was when Baral was printed, and it was sort of one of his general rules for brewing and deck building is that whenever you have 8 of an effect, that's when you should start paying attention. Because, immediately we saw the Storm deck at the get-go playing 4 Barals, 4 Goblin Electromancers, you had 8 of the Cost Reducer, your deck became a lot more consistent. So now I think with the London mulligan rule, it sort of has that same effect in terms of if you have 1 or 2 specific cards, I think the math ends up being like double for some of these. Like the 2-card combo, I think it was 20% in the current mulligan rules, and up to like 40 to 45 with the new rule. So it's not. I don't want to be jumping the gun and say worrisome. Obviously, there's a lessened effect for the hate cards, but an effect nonetheless where people will be drawing ley lines, like I mentioned, drawing Rest in Peace. So I don't want to say I'm scared for the future of Modern because of this. But, decks like Boggles, where you only have 8 Boggles before, but now you're almost guaranteed to have 1 in an enchantment, Boggles, I think, I don't want to say very happily will mulligan to 4, but a 4-card hand of two lands a boggle and an enchantment, or 2 enchantments boggle a land, that's very scary for a lot of modern decks. So a lot of these outside decks in modern, I think, improve a ton, and I think that's what, if you're cute for London, if you're just looking to have some fun testing out the new mulligan rule, it's probably a good place to start. Ad nauseum, boggles, those sorts of decks.
Hey, that's a good point. I used to play boggles a long time ago. I always get crap for it because I even wrote articles on it. But you're right, because a lot of times you just don't play that many hexproof guys because they're just like, you just want one. So man, I didn't think about that as being a deck that would benefit from this. Any takeaways from you? But I mean, this is what we all thought was sort of, without getting into the nitty-gritty math. But it's good to see that someone who did all the math thinks this is very worrisome.
I'm not that worried, but that is sort of my nature to not be that worried. But I just hope that things will self-correct itself. Like the only scariest thing for me for modern is that Dredge will get better. It was already like one of the best decks for sure, certainly tier 1, and it gets better because it doesn't really need a lot of cards for the most part. It just kind of needs Faithless Looting, like 2 lands and a Dredger, and then that's all it needs. So that's kind of really good for them. So that's the only deck that sort of worries me. And like maybe the pickup in Graveyard Hate will be able to keep Phoenix in check so they don't ban it, and maybe be able to keep Dredge in check. Like Black Leyline gets a lot better, and that's like for Phoenix, it's like you can't get rid of it. If there's a Black Leyline in play, it's in play the whole game. So like that's a pretty big benefit for Black Leyline. So hopefully things correct itself, because there's a few decks that do get better, but only Dredge is like the one that's tier 1 that gets better. The second closest I think is Tron at tier not quite 1. That'll get quite a bit better too.
Oh yeah, Elliot, what do you think? What are the top decks that you mentioned, in your opinion, something like Boggles or was it Ad Nauseam? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I said Boggles and Ad Nauseam. Those were, I was trying to pick out the ones maybe people weren't thinking of. Tron for sure gets better. I mentioned the math was a little less than I thought it would be, but it still definitely improves. I think Thoughtseize decks are not going to be improving very much. So if you're a Tarmogoyf person, I'm sorry. But you probably shouldn't have been in the first place, so you had it coming. Just like any combo deck, the Living End deck with Electro Dominance, you could even play Restore Balance. You mulligan to 4 or whatever, and just turn 1 Restore Balance your opponent with a Simian Spirit Guide, and just their whole hand's gone.
Wait, wow, that's kind of sick.
I don't know, just like, the Frank Carson posted the math for having a 2-card combo. So if your 2-card combo is Electro Dominance or As Foretold as one piece, so you have 8 copies, and then your other half is Restore Balance or Living End as the other 8 copies, you can pretty much always find them at a reasonable number of cards, probably like 4 or 5. 4's not that great, obviously, but 5-card hand, perfectly reasonable to win a game with. And when you're going to be finding both pieces pretty consistently, that's a deck that could be pretty scary. And even if you're not all in with Restore Balance, it's kind of a cheeky way to go about it. But just even the Living and Electro Dominance deck, that's one that's going to improve a ton. So
wow, second, it might actually be as crazy as the first Pro Tour, Modern Pro Tour. Now we'll finish this topic with a Master of Degeneracy and Money. How's it going? I always have to do that.
What is that? A Master of Degeneracy and Money? I'm not sure I want to be known like that.
John,
yeah, I mean,
new mulligan rule.
I don't think we can, like, I don't think worried is the word, right? Like, am I worried? Like, I mean, I'm worried like when it's raining out and I'm driving, I might wreck the car or something. Like, that worries me. Like, a mulligan rule doesn't worry me. It's like, it'll be fine. And if it's not fine, they'll change it, right? So I think that EDH players understand this because like we used to experiment with this rule, similar rule, right? It's like, can we do partial Paris, which is like similar to this rule where you draw 7 and then you throw back the ones you don't want, you keep the ones you do want. And everybody knows at the EDH table, if you do that, like if you have a degenerate deck, it's like not good for them, you know? And so I know it's not the same rule, but it's similar. And I think Magic players have that knowledge. I'm glad someone did the math, but like, you know, like you guys just all said right now, you know, those people with the degenerate decks are going to benefit a little bit from that. But also, you know, you can benefit from getting your hate cards too, because there are so many hate cards that are like shut down linear strategies. So your mulligan is stronger against them. So like, yeah, maybe you're going to mulligan to Rest in Peace, or maybe you're going to mulligan to, you know, Surgical Extraction or something that's going to hose them, or, you know, whatever, you know, the other one that's like Rest in Peace but shuts off artifacts. I don't know. They go in pairs. You know, everyone always runs like 2 of those and 2 of the other one. Stony Silence, that's the one. So yeah, that's what I think. I don't really. You guys are the pros, man. You know, you guys are the pros. I'm just like a master of money and degeneracy. You know.
All right. Can't wait to see what happens. Our guy Derek Pite is currently with Space Gender testing for the Mythic Championship. So let's move on to another topic that I wanted to pick your brain on, John, and the rest of the guys for sure, because you've been in and out with streaming and then helping Jesse with his stream and stuff like that. And that's the subject of co-streaming. So I'm just going to quickly read off from WotC. We're trying something new with the Mythic Invitational on Twitch. Streamers will be able to co-stream the official Mythic Invitational feed on their own Twitch channel between March 28th and 31st. Following Twitch's content sharing guidelines, you can co-stream the PAX East Mythic Invitational from twitch.tv/magic using OBS or XSplit. This allows anyone on Twitch to be able to cover the event in their voice and with their community. To be clear, co-streamed content is not endorsed by Wizards, and we expect anyone who participates in co-streaming to follow Wizards fan content policy. If all goes well with this test, we hope to do this at future competitive events. Your first reaction on this, John?
I think it's super smart. It's super smart on Wizards' part because what they do is they tap into all of the tribes to get maximum exposure for their event through Twitch, right? They're trying to really push the Twitch envelope or envelope. I don't know how to say that, but they're really trying to gain a presence in Twitch. And doing that allows you to tap into all of those little tribes, you know. And I think it's good for content creators, right? Because it gives them something to kind of bounce off of. Now, some content creators they have trouble making solo content, which is like some content creators are really good at like speaking or orating, and they can make a solo content where they could just podcast alone and you just listen to them, you know, or they can like do a stream alone and they're walking through their plays in like an entertaining way and you listen to them. But other people, they benefit more from having like a co-host or having something to bounce off of, something that, because otherwise sometimes it gets awkward, right? For these people, they want to say something, they can't like spark it in their mind, and they're just stuck and they're paralyzed. But now they're watching content and they're able to make commentary and you know, cue people in and stuff, and that gives kind of like a backdrop and helps them to, I guess, find their voice a little bit. So it's good from like an artistic perspective. It's good from a strategic perspective. It's good for streamers, all sizes, small, big, whatever, because you get to bring your unique view to the content, right? And it also is a way for Wizards to kind of weed out some of these content creators that they feel like are not going to represent their brand well. I mean, let's be honest, you know, when you start talking about the whole Jeff Hoagland thing, right? You know, the guy is continually shooting himself in the foot. You know, I have nothing against Jeff Hoagland or anything like that. I wish prosperous things on everyone who tries to do things. You know, I want them all to win. But like, if you shoot yourself in the foot over and over again, then, you know, Wizards is making it clear, look, we're not going to, you know, we're not going to endorse you. You're not going to be part of this content group if that's what you're going to do. And I'm not trying to bring up drama here, but I'm just saying, like, this is a good example. See how they said, look, we don't endorse these streams, and like you still have to use this fan art policy, right? So like if they're watching streams and some people are not representing their brand in the way they want them to represent, then they could just put them on that super secret list where it's like, nope, right under Jeff Hoagland's name, you're not getting there, you're not gonna, you're not gonna whatever, So it's helpful in that way. And I'm not joking. This is serious stuff, man. This is really happening, I think. And is it fun? Is it really funny, or do you think it doesn't happen, or?
No, I don't know. I find everything funny, you know me, and couldn't help myself a lot.
Are you nervous because I'm talking about Wizards in a way that could blacklist you?
I'm good. I've been doing this for a long time. Andy?
I was gonna say, I guess we're not getting on Jeff Hoagland's stream anytime soon.
Yeah, let's get him on the show next week. He can defend himself.
No.
Goodbye, Hooglandia. We didn't make it. Sorry. The promised land is out of reach. I think it's like, he can't be mad about that, right? He did it. He shot himself in the foot. Like, they told him too. They were like, look, you're a liability because you say these things. And then he's like, I'm going to say more things. Dude, like, don't do that. Like, rewind, come on, for your own sake, man. Jeff, if you're listening, for your own sake, man, rewind. Don't do it.
John, would you be interested in doing with co-streaming? Would this something? Will we see you potentially experiment with this?
I think like if I wanted to be a content creator, like a streamer, I'd be all over that. Like if you're out there and you want to be a streamer, this is a great way to be noticed by Wizards of the Coast, because think about like if you do a good job, think about the social media reaction. Okay, if Wizards is seeing people say, "Oh, you were so great at co-streaming," if you're trying to gain like a spot in streaming the Mythic Championship, like let's say that you want to be like an announcer or commentator, like you should do this. You should definitely co-stream this because A, it gives you practice, B, it gets you in the eyes of Wizards and others, and I think you should. Now, that's not my goal right now. I've got so many irons in the fire. Like, I'm actually at a game store right now. And I consult at this game store, and I'm over here helping this game store, like, be successful, So, like, I don't have time to stream. I love streaming. I love talking to people, and it's great. It's fun. But, like, it doesn't pay the bills. And, let's be honest, like, my skill set is really not there. I mean, like, if you look at, like, Jesse, right? Jesse's insane, man. That guy is, like, a natural at streaming. There's people who are just very good at it. And, like, I'm like not in that echelon, So, when you talk about my skill sets, I think my skill sets more loan themselves to like business or to this other stuff, and so I'm just gonna do what I know,
And Andy or Elliot, like, does this mean that is there still going to be like a mainstream and official?
Oh, yeah. For sure, this is $1 million tournament.
Yeah,
There's definitely going to be a mainstream. It's just like I assume. So this is the first I've ever heard of it, but I assume it's just like a free roll to let other people like stream it as well and talk over it, which like they do with other things as well, I believe. Like, do they do this with like a GDQ or Games Done Quick, Elliot?
I know that they have like official restreams in different languages. I don't know if they allow other people to just like watch the stream and comment over it.
I'm just gonna do it in Chinese.
You're going big, Carr.
You joke about that, but that's a thing, man. If you could do it in Spanish or Chinese, like that could draw an audience for reals.
John, you're the Spanish.
I can't even speak Spanish. Jesse thought I was white. He thought I was Caucasian.
Go ahead, Elliot. Sorry.
I do know that last year during the NFL season, there were a few games that were played on Twitch, and they allowed people to watch and comment over it. So that's like the one place I've been exposed to it a lot. When in terms of it's like an actual big event, and they just allow people to go, hog wild with restreaming it. So I think it's definitely really cool. Yeah, I read the announcement like twice, and I had no idea what it meant, and I've been slowly figuring it out. And it's just cool, more cool every detail I figure out about it.
Yeah, they do this kind of stuff with like the video game shows, right? like when they revealed the new video games at E3 and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and I love watching like my favorite streamers react to that kind of stuff. And I watch that before I watch like the regular version of it because it's just free to also watch your favorite streamer at the same time. So like that part's pretty cool. And I think it's pretty exciting. I like that kind of stuff. It's odd that like all the best streamers are going to be there.
Yeah,
Well, almost all of them,
right.
except for the current biggest Magic the Gathering streamer, Jeff Hoogland, who will not be in attendance. I wonder if he'll co-stream it.
I mean,
That would be cool.
He would.
People would watch
100%.
as long as he like puts aside some of the differences and just does what he does well, and that's talk about Magic to people.
He no doubt has a following, right? I mean, he's doing something right?
Well, he's actually the biggest non like SCG or Magic streamer.
Okay, see, like he's doing something right. It's just that sometimes you have to play ball, you know.
Elliot and Andy, like you guys were around when people were doing this just to say basically an FU to either official WotC or SCG coverage. They're like, oh, we could do a better job. I think AJ Soccer.
Yeah, he did. This is actually how Alex Bertoncini got banned the second time.
Oh, yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
He was streaming over an SCG and then said some really terrible things and then got banned again.
I think, yeah, like he was making fun of probably like the player's looks or something. Look at this guy. Look at this ugly guy. I don't know. I wasn't watching his stuff. But yeah, before people were just doing it just to say, hey, I'm better than the official coverage. And I am intrigued. I am hopeful that someone allows people, like John said, to break through. And man, maybe people will do it in different languages, like easily.
Oh, for sure. Without a doubt, there'll be like people who speak different languages and want to be a Magic content creator will attach to that niche right away.
Yeah, wasn't that on the Game podcast where they had, is it GAM or Game podcast? They had the world champion, and he said that there's not a lot of content in Spanish.
Yeah, Javier Dominguez.
Yeah, and he was talking about how it's a big deal because he wanted to learn from the best in this kind of stuff. And so if you're in different countries and you want to learn Magic or you want to be part of the celebration or whatever, and there's no content creator that's representing you, then that's part of an issue, and that's part of why some content creators will be more successful in those areas than others. Like there was the girl Mayfer, I guess her name was, that she was part of the original invite, but she is a Mexican YouTuber, and she has a really big following, and she creates content in Spanish. I was just saying Mexican. She creates content in Spanish, right? So like it's a thing. It's really if you speak a different language, I would really think about and you want to be a content creator. It's about what you want, though, right? It's about what you want.
But what about people who just speak English though? Like what's their approach? I mean, Andy talked about how he likes to see established streamers because that he's already grown to love and he wants to watch. And now we got most of them at the event itself. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, you want to watch so when there's a streamer that you connect with in whatever way, you really like watching their stream. You feel like they're sort of your friend, even though they may not be. But like you feel like you understand their views and you want to know what their point of view is. And so when you're watching the content, you still hear the commentary, you still hear everyone talking, but they're just going to chime in with their thoughts as they're watching it too, which is just kind of like watching it with your pals. And then everyone in chats, the people, if you talk in chat, the people you talk in chat with all the time. So it's just like doing it all with your friends. It's kind of cool.
There's also oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Andy kind of pointed out that this event in particular, a lot of the biggest streamers are there because you have the MPL, and then they also invited a lot of hand-selected streamers on top of that. But if they continue this in the future, the next big, large arena tournaments like at this scale are going to be all people in the MPL and people that qualify through playing Magic. So a lot of the streamers that are there sort of on the merits of their content and their community building are all of a sudden going to be available to do this co-streaming. Caleb Durward's a player who obviously he's very good, but he probably won't get to the next Mythic Invitational. But he's a really great streamer for watching him from a community perspective and sort of like you were alluding to, where when he streams, it's like hanging out with a friend. So, you know, he's someone that, at least in my mind, kind of jumps out to, if they do this again in the future, that's someone I'd definitely be looking forward to watching the co-stream of. So I think that's, you know, we might be getting a test run of it now, and it's maybe a little unfortunate that a lot of these community-based streamers are going to be at the event rather than being able to co-stream it, but that's going to be really cool in the future if they keep going with this.
I think also people make the mistake when creating content that they believe they have to say something different to be a content creator, you know, and that's not true. You just have to say what you see in your own voice. And so, like, I feel like if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a streamer, if you want to be any of these things, you just understand that you have a voice, understand what that voice is, and utilize it. So I feel like anybody can do this if they want to do it, you know, and you shouldn't worry that, oh, the mainstream is going to be better. It isn't a quantitative thing. It's not about what's better or what's worse. It's about what are you bringing to the table. And I think also the mainstream is still lacking. There's still information and stuff you can bring. Like if you're talking about, like if you do your research and you bring in stories about these players, and you draw it up, like, you know, I used to watch a lot of boxing when I was younger, and they would tell the story of the fighters before the fight, you know. So this kind of stuff I think can be part of your stream, which is not going to be part of the mainstream. Or even if you look back in like my past of stuff that I used to do, you know, if there's a Magic Finance content person out there who wants to talk about card prices and, like, you know, the different impact that these decks are having in the tournament on the market live, like, that's valuable. People want to hear that kind of stuff, you know. Even if a store wants to stream stuff and then put sales on cards and do gimmicks and stuff, there's lots of different angles and different things you can bring. And I'm not trying to cheapen it by say, oh, do gimmicks. I think the most important thing to understand is that all of these different kind of ideas are going to come from somebody with that voice, right? The person with the voice is going to bring a unique perspective, unique ideas, and their unique community. As Andy pointed out, you know, there's going to be a tribe, and that tribe's going to get together around the campfire, and they're going to watch the stream together, and they're going to listen to the voice of the chief of the tribe, or the shaman, or however you want to say it, you know.
I love it. I actually can't wait, and hope someone I know does the stream. I mean, if Alex wasn't there, if Hayne wasn't there, I would have done something with him. And now I have to settle with considering doing like a Chinese stream. With gotta find some like wanted Chinese co-hosts.
Sponsored by Kim Fat, dude.
What?
Sponsored by Kim Fat.
Like Kim Fat, local Chinese grocery store, supermarket.
Like you don't have to. It's not like you're doing commentary, Carl. You're just watching it and like just hanging out is like mostly what you'd be doing. It's not like you like dress up in a suit, you have a booth and a desk. It's just you're just.
It would help.
Would it though?
Yeah, I think so. I think the presentation would.
I don't think that's what co-streaming is all about to me.
What if the A team co-streamed it? Jay Boo should be. Jay Boo should be off the hook.
A team in its prime could stream it, but not now. Let's go on to our final topic. John, because last week the big announcement of War of the Spark came after the last episode, so we didn't get to talk about it, which is the announcement that every booster pack is going to contain at least one Planeswalker, and there'll be 36 Planeswalkers included in the set. And then there's all these pictures that WotC showed, pictures and made people speculate on which Planeswalker would be included in the set. And I didn't even know, I didn't even realize of course, that's why you're here, the financial implications. But until like someone at work told me like, hey, that Planeswalker card, you know, it's being sold out in a lot of places, or a lot of places have jacked the prices for that card. I forget what it's called. You would know more than me, probably, John.
Is it the Immortal Sun?
No, I think it's the
Chain Veil.
I think it's in the same set, but it's something to deal with. Maybe the Chain Veil, yeah, something that just.
Is it Sorcerer's
You can use Planeswalkers twice a turn.
Yeah, that might be it. Like anything dealing with planeswalkers have quadrupled or like increased significantly in price. So
Yeah,
have you
the
seen that?
Mox in standard also jumped up a bunch. Forget the name of it. Mox something.
Mox Amber.
Mox Amber. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of financial implications because of all the planeswalkers. I think Elliot's on top of all the hot cards that rose. Um, you know, it's a natural knee jerk reaction to something, right? It's like because there's going to be 36 planeswalkers, all of a sudden it's like, okay, what is good with planeswalkers? What is good against planeswalkers? Let's buy everything, right? Just buy it all. And you're not wrong because there's a hive mind out there and everyone's buying it all. Just like when they said with Modern Horizons, hey, we're not going to reprint any currently modern cards. Well, that's free money. Like, just give me all the fetch lands, and then all of a sudden they all start going up, because people are freaking out. They're like, well, we're not going to reprint Scalding Tarn for another year. I need Scalding Tarns, man. They're over $100. What am I going to do? I got to buy them now. FOMO, and it's not only irrational, knee-jerk reaction with the Modern Horizon things. There are retailers buying fetch lands. I'll take a page from Rudy's book. Places like Moon City Games, are over here buying out fetch lands at like higher than TCG prices. What does that mean? That means that those fetch lands are not going to be that price for very long, And so back to the topic at hand, War of the Spark. This is going to be really super interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, planeswalkers have not been not mythic. Okay, they've always been mythic, and I don't think there's 36 mythics in the set, right? So what that suggests is that the planeswalkers are going to be spread across different rarities. Now, does that mean we'll get an uncommon planeswalker? Does it mean we'll get a common planeswalker? I don't know, maybe. But what it does mean is we're going to get rare planeswalkers. And what we saw with like inventions and invocations, they did the expeditions, then they did inventions, and then they did invocations, right? And by that point, nobody wanted them, okay? Because it's just too overdone. It's like too much fancy cards, And I think that's kind of where we're going with the Planeswalker thing, right? It's like first they were rare, and then they were like there were some in every set, but they're only mythic. But now it's just going to be like boom, all the planeswalkers everywhere. And I feel like there's going to be like a backlash to that. It's going to be like, oh, planeswalkers are not that special. They're everywhere. And we're going to see the, values depressed because of those things. And then over time, this set is going to increase like infinitely because in this box, every pack is going to have a planeswalker in it. And over time, as that novelty wears off again and the knee-jerk reaction wears off and everybody comes to their senses and whatnot, the casuals are going to be like, dude, I want to open up some of those packs with those planeswalkers in it. And, those packs are going to be worth quite a bit of money. And now I know that they're going to print it to demand or whatever. That means that they're not going to stop printing it. But, give it some time and at some point it's going to overrun its usefulness and then going to go out of print. And then, that's going to happen. As for all these cards that spiked, a lot of them are good in EDH anyways. So, sure. I mean, this set just kind of hurried up their trajectory, but like the Chain Veil, that was already spiking. That was already on the way up. And so was, the Immortal Sun, because that does like 100 things and it's awesome in EDH. Well, it's awesome in EDH let's put it this way. Like, I don't know how to say this without being rude. I'm not going to say it, but I'll say this. Like, I'll say this, that there's people who play EDH for a lot of fun, and they put crazy things in their decks, and that's the format where you can be crazy. And so that's why some of these cards, even though they're not optimal, like I would never put an Immortal Sun in my EDH deck, because like by the time I'm casting that thing, I'm just trying to kill everyone at the table. I'm not trying to put a big artifact in play, but that's not what EDH is about. So like a lot of people will put that in their deck, and those things will go up anyways. Atraxa is already like, Atraxa is a deck. So anything to do with planeswalkers, there's the Atraxa deck, and that's going to drive prices forever, And so I don't know. I'll let you guys talk about that. You tell me if you have questions about that.
No. We just need your main financial advice and I guess prediction or whatever. But as a player, are you excited for this set?
I'm not super excited for the set. I wonder, so when the set came out, when the last set came out on Arena, I had a blast because Standard is insane, right? Well, it was insane at that point. I don't know what it is like right now, but at that point, all the brewing, all the playing the different decks, and just so many options, it was great. Okay, now that we have all these planeswalkers, there's a couple of things. One, they're going to be hard to evaluate. Players are typically not good at evaluating planeswalkers, and it's not because you all are idiots or we're all idiots. It's just because there's a lot of thinking that you have to think in a certain way to actually see it in the context and say, well, that could be good here, and that's what the context we're going to be in or whatever. And so it'll be interesting to watch the misevaluations and the opportunities there. So when you say what's your financial advice, if you're looking to try to buy cards, look for the opportunities that people might not be seeing because of the misevaluations. Try to find an analog. Always look for a card that does a similar thing and ask yourself, was it good in a context or was it not? And if you can find that analog and people are not picking up on that, that's a good way to buy. Okay, so that's the answer to that question in a nutshell. But when you say, are you excited? I wonder what this will do to Standard. So many planeswalkers. If none of them are good, then the set is kind of not good, right? Because there's 36 of them. So
Yeah.
And then if a lot of them are good, then it's just going to be planeswalker magic, right? Because it's just going to be infinite planeswalkers. Even in Standard, it got a little bit I'm going to play my Vivian Reed, and then I'm going to play my Vivian Reed, and then I'm going to play my Karn, or I'm going to play my Teferi. Just planeswalker battles is already can be a little bit annoying. And so now you imagine you have maybe let's just say 10 of them are good. Wow. What are we going to do? It's going to change the game a bit. And I don't know if I like that. Now, maybe I'll love it, but I'm not excited about it. And also, I don't run a lot of planeswalkers in my commander deck, so I'm not excited about that. Now, sure, is it going to make a bunch of money? Yeah, man, no doubt. We're probably going to sell out of all this stuff, and we're probably going to pre-sell all these planeswalkers at way higher than what they should be sold for, right? Because out of 36, everyone's going to want certain ones, right? And everyone's going to pay the premium on them. And then only so many of them are going to be good. The statistically, the math is just good for anybody who pre-sells this product because of the planeswalkers.
Right. Man, before I get Andy and Elliot's take here, when game days and special tournaments were first introduced by WotC, I don't know about you guys, but I was excited to play in them because they were fresh or new. To be the game, I remember like Jay on the A team would be proud of being the game day champion, and that was a thing. And then they changed it to store championship. Here at Face to Face Games Montreal, I think no one really cares about these events. Probably not in Quebec. I wonder how in Montreal overall. And then there's all these draft weekends, etc. I really wonder what the appeal is. But this time, for this one, I think it might be for War of the Spark. This might be the most intriguing one. These one-off events that they're introducing Planeswalker Weekend that will be supported, according to them, by the largest event kit of all time. And then for the Planeswalker Weekend Draft or Seal event, Planeswalker cards will be castable using mana of any color. This means that players will be able to play every Planeswalker they open, regardless of the colors of their deck. So I think this might appeal to even me to play this funky, crazy event. So, Andy, how excited are you about War of the Spark as a whole? When you heard about this news, are you indifferent to it?
About all the Planeswalkers, yeah. I'm pretty excited. I like to play with good Planeswalkers, but at the same time, Planeswalkers are really hard to answer, and that's sort of frightening from a gameplay perspective, because what happens with Planeswalkers is it leads to more snowballing, and when someone has an advantage, it's harder to catch back up. And that's sort of some of the best Magic you can play is when you find a way to catch back up. So I'm a little afraid of that, but my assumption is that WotC's pretty good at their job, and that a lot of these Planeswalkers will suck, but they'll be good in limited or interesting in limited. And that's all they really need to be. Like, I like the current batch of planeswalkers they made, like Kaya and Domre. They seem like pretty good power levels. So Domre's not great, but he's like pretty good sometimes. And Kaya is like, when it's good, it's insane, but it's like bad most of the time. And like that's the kind of planeswalker I like to see. So hopefully they follow that kind of design with them. I feel like what we're going to see is we're going to see some bad planeswalkers like for constructed, but I think they're going to do something interesting in limited. I would think of them more akin to like think of some of the enchantments that we've had that have like an effect every turn. That's the kind of thing. Like maybe they just have one ability. Maybe I like probably no ultimate unless they're like the great ones. So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to unique designs on Planeswalkers and hope it's implemented well so that it doesn't ruin Standard.
Are you, though? Because you hated enchantments. You hated good, decent enchantments and limited in Ravnica Allegiance, and I could see you hating the draft format.
They'll be like 1 mana, destroy all Planeswalkers. I don't know. They'll figure it out. They'll make some good answers. I feel like they don't want every game to be miserable, and yeah,
that's what it was this set.
Don't get me started on those enchantments. Ill-Gotten Inheritance was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that was unbeatable. Like, let's be honest.
Elliot, are you excited about the set?
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried for limited. You know, we complained for Ravnica Allegiance, like you mentioned, only having 1 disenchant. I don't know how many heroes downfalls they can print in this set to kill the planeswalkers. In terms of constructed, I don't know how much it's actually going to alter things, because really at any given time you can only play so many planeswalkers in a deck. We've recently had a lot of planeswalkers that sort of fit like the Ob Nixilis templating, where their +1 is some sort of card advantage, their minus is destroy creature, maybe with some rider, and then they have an ultimate that more or less wins the game. You know, Vivian is almost exactly Ob Nixilis with that sort of formatting. Teferi is sort of similar. They all just have like a minus that protects themselves and a plus that generates card advantage. I don't want to do too much speculating in terms of what the planeswalkers will see in the set art, because there's 36 of them. Obviously, they're going to be a lot different, but I think a lot of them are going to not be able to protect themselves. I think we're going to see a lot of planeswalkers that won't create creature tokens to block and won't have a removal spell tied to them. And I think that that's what's going to help create a healthy limited environment. Andy sort of mentioned planeswalkers with just a plus or just a minus, no ultimate, glorified enchantments, and I would expect that that's what we'll see a lot of. I'm skeptical that it's going to warp Standard, where you'll see like a big Super Friends deck, because we've had some really powerful planeswalkers in Standard at the same time, and when it comes down to it, you can only play so many slots. Vraska Relic Seeker is an incredibly powerful planeswalker, but can you play 7 planeswalkers or 8 planeswalkers in your Golgari deck? Because you're not going to not play Vivian. So, like, where do you draw the line? And I think that a lot of these planeswalkers, especially if they end up being uncommon or common, where they'll be a little powered down, they're just not going to be making the cut in constructed. So.
Yeah. There could be like a cycle that's like a 3 mana blue planeswalker starts at 2 or 3 loyalty. It's like -1 draw a card. Then you get to draw a card once a turn for 3 turns. They could attack it so you draw less. Or like a 3 mana one that's like -1 make a soldier. No other abilities.
Yeah, maybe we'll
something
get
like that.
Maybe we'll get like Jace Bellerin again, except he doesn't have a plus, and maybe the set will have other ways to interact with planeswalkers. Like we saw Settle the Score in Dominaria, I think, where you put 2 loyalty counters on a planeswalker. Maybe we'll have something like that, where it's additional riders on spells to get more value out of your planeswalkers that are otherwise just Jace Bellerins without a plus.
Yeah, they just add proliferate ruin Standard.
Well, not proliferate necessarily, but specifically the card Settle the Score, right? You print like a Jace Bellerin that comes down on 3, minuses to draw a card, and let's say it has 2 loyalty. But if you curve that into your Settle the Score and bump it back up to 3 loyalty, now you're cooking with fire. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
and that's a
kind of
card
thing's interesting.
that can't run
like
away
it.
with the game. You're not going to win the game off of drawing 2 cards from your Planeswalker, and it's not Jace the Mind Sculptor or anything like that. So I think that is probably the space they were headed. But again, 36 Planeswalkers, that's got to be a lot of different. They can't all be the same. They're gonna have to be somewhat equally balanced against all the colors, so they're not all gonna be able to just draw a card. And I think it's gonna be really cool.
They're all like epic pieces of the story, and it's like, so all I can think is like they just have like this epic character from the story. It'll be like Ugin, and all it does is like -1 to gain 2 life. -1, gain 2 more. What's next?
You read the story, and the one that finally kills Nicol Bolas after all of this. He's been devastating all these planes, and he sticks around for 2 turns and leaves 2 tokens. That's all it does.
It would be funny if they did a Planeswalker that just plussed, but nothing to minus it. So it'll just have all these loyalty counters, but it just keeps going and going and going.
There's a Gideon like that, isn't there? I guess it has like a -20, doesn't it? The 4-mana Gideon?
I don't remember.
Champion of Justice,
Yeah, it
I
does.
think.
It has a huge minus.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, all these examples would make the set sucks if they were all like this.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, so there has to be a balance, and I pray that Wizards of the Coast can figure this out, because you can't make like Jace the was like out too late last night, and like he just doesn't do a good job.
I think the play design team has been doing awesome. So, they make cards like, Assassin's Trophy, where everyone looks at it and it's like, that's going to be a 4-of. It's so insane. And then like it just gets like hardly played because like everything else is so well balanced and so good. So I think play design has been kicking butt, and I think they will hopefully do the same here. And, if they don't, then it'll just be crazy. It'll be funny in a way.
See, what I want to know is how they arrived at 36. Do you think that was from the get-go? They thought, we're going to do a set with 36 Planeswalkers? Or do you think in the design they were like, well, we need an Ugin, and then what if we brought back Tibble? Then they get to like 12 and they're like, screw it. We'll go all the way.
Triple it. No.
Those are rookie numbers.
It could have to do with the sheets that they're printing on, and the cutting and distribution. Since there'll be one in every pack, it could be that I don't know, that 36 made sense for the cutting and the distribution of the packs.
You don't think Morrow just like got tired of people asking where a Planeswalker was in the lore on his blog, and he just finally snapped and said, "We'll give them all of them."
They're all right here.
People are still going to complain that some are missing.
I'm complaining. Where's Elspeth? We need Elspeth back. Just give me Elspeth Sun's Champion as an evergreen card in Standard. Let me just always cast that card. I'll never complain about the format.
I just want Mowu. Is that his name? The little pup?
He's such a good boy.
Good one. Sun's Champion is
very loyal.
Personal favorite of mine also.
It's a great card in EDH. You guys should play EDH more often. It's a staple, top 100 card in EDH.
Look, you were trash talking the Immortal Sun earlier, so you're not going to sell me on Elspeth.
I was not trash talking. The Immortal Sun's great in EDH decks, Sure. I'm not trash talking it. Let's be clear. I'm just saying, it's not. I don't feel it's optimal in most decks, but people like doing splashy things,
It's pretty optimal when you're selling people an Elspeth Sun's Champion. You get 10 people in a room, sell them Elspeth Sun's Champion while you have your Immortal Sun Elder Dragon Highlander deck.
Well, yeah, I think it's optimal also selling, the Immortal Suns. That's very optimal. I like to sell those. I like to buy them more, but I like to sell them as well. So, yeah,
right.
Finance, money. Go ahead, type it in the chat. Whoever's typing that in the chat. ROI. Finance, money.
We'll wrap the show up. John, is there anything you want to plug or shout out?
Oh man,
give you the floor.
I don't. Just if you're not following me on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter Medina_MTG. So that's MEDINA_MTG. And anything I want to plug, I just plug it on Twitter. So I also give stuff away. I think I'm going to give a box of War of the Spark away when that releases. So I like giving things away because it makes people happy, and it's fun, because people don't always get stuff, and then when you're like, yeah, man, have a box of War of the Spark, they're like, dude, this is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, it is awesome, right? Thumbs up. All right, so that's it. And I appreciate you letting me on and letting me, talk.
If you have to name someone that you would like to do the co-streaming, who would it be besides Jesse?
Okay, I was gonna say Jesse, no doubt, because I think he really is talented, and I'd love to see him co-stream. But I'd also like to see. There's a content creator named Jake Boss. He does MTG Tonight. It's like a pretty well produced, YouTube channel. So MTG Tonight, check it out. He interviews people about EDH decks and stuff like that. But his content is really solid. I think he works really hard to produce it well, and he's sings on the guitar and stuff. He's very talented, and he's a kind of a newer content creator. And I'd love to see him do it. I think he's got skills, and I feel like he's still kind of discovering himself, and I think that would be cool to see him in that capacity.
I just imagined Mike Flores co-streaming. That would be so funny.
I love Mike. I don't know if I'd watch a co-stream from Mike Flores. I love him. I think he's great, but I feel like there's a I think he'd talk a lot about himself more than he'd talk about probably the cast, right? No shade. Everyone's got their to be on brand, but I think that's what would probably happen.
Flores and Champion Flores BDM. That would be an all-star co-stream.
Oh man, BDM. I mean, obviously, right? I mean, BDM.
Hey, so that I could co-stream. What?
He's like, I got you, Wizards. I'll do this. Pro Tour. I mean, Mythic Champion Historian.
Let's go. Elliot, what's on the horizon for you? Anything still on your?
I'm maybe going to Niagara Falls next month. I'm just trying to take it easy. I love Magic, but I'm magicked out right now. So I'll maybe play some Arena next week. That's some of my horizons.
Needs a War of the Spark. What about you, Andy?
Got that top 1,000 grind. Gotta get on that.
Oh yeah.
Don't you want one of the highest money PTQs that you could just play at home?
Yeah, but it's every 2 months.
Grind is.
I can do that next month. I'm bronze right now, so.
Oh, you have 2 months. We have until the end of April.
Yeah, it's like every season, right? That's what I think. I'm really all in on being able to grind next month and not this one. So if someone's in the chat or tweets at me, please let me know if I don't have next month. Preferably before the weekend.
Do you know Andy?
I thought it was the end of the month, so.
Okay.
I thought it was like this month you cut the top 1,000, and then next month you cut the top 1,000, and then whatever. That's how many people get in, up to 4,000 or whatever it is. But obviously there'll be. That's what I thought it was. So please tweet at me if I'm wrong, so that I can play this weekend and get to Mythic.
How could they tweet at you? What is your Twitter handle?
Elliot_Fortier.
See, Carl, this is all you do. I'm a natural at this. I could do this.
I think that was pretty good.
All right. Support the show at patreon.com/firststrike. And if you want to see any of these gentlemen or anyone that who you would like to see co-stream, I would like to know. Tweet at me.
First Strike co-stream.
Yeah, well, I think I have to do a China. I need to find someone and get sponsored by Kim Fat or something.
How hard could it be? How many days do I got? What are we talking here, man? I don't know the Chinese languages, so I'm not going to butcher. Is Cantonese one of them?
Yeah, Cantonese. I would want to do a whole network. We got John that the Spanish but doesn't speak Spanish channel.
You ever seen Inglourious Bastards? It's like Brad Pitt's character, Buongiorno.
That'd be great. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week. Talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.